Welcome to Sports Connection. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. Back from being on assignment, Tate Mathews. Good to be back with you. A lot has happened since our last show. I'll say this, another sport in the books. We get a team semifinalist in that particular sport. We've got the wrestling state duels coming up, and then basketball. We're kind of heading to the home stretch here, and we sort of know what's going on. The boys' side, not really. Girls' side, we know.
Correct.
We know the top four in girls.
Without a doubt.
After that, boys.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, don't know.
What order is it going to be in?
Well, and I don't think it totally matters. I think it's the matchup.
Right.
We'll put it this way. If it ended right now, you would have Franklin beat Brentwood, so they would own number one. It would be Franklin Centennial boys in an elimination game. Battle of Franklin. Don't think you'd want that if you were Franklin High.
No.
Just because of that game.
That's right.
So.
Rivalries can always, what do they say? Which it's not always true, but throw the records out the window. I think on the boys' side you can say that pretty.
In rivalry games.
That's not a great. You're right.
I don't mind being the underdog because there's so much emotion and it kind of messes the game up anyway.
Right.
So that's what you're alluding to.
Yes.
All right, let's do this.
And we'll get to it, but some upsets in wrestling. One monster. I don't think it is.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that here in a bit. Let's start with hoops.
Okay.
So we're going to go basketball. We'll talk about last week's games. We'll talk about the standings. So if you take a look on the girls' side at the girls' scoreboard, really no surprise last Tuesday night. You had Brentwood with the win over Centennial. Franklin and Summit, a close game, but Franklin comes out on top. Nolensville, 14-point win over Indy. Then Page defeating Ravenwood. You fast forward to Friday. Here's one we are going to talk about. This kind of was a surprise.
Yeah.
Nolensville wins at Brentwood, 44-36. Franklin dominates Ravenwood. Franklin, I'm telling you, we've been talking. You called it early. They're making a move up. Page over Indy, and then Summit over Centennial. So let's do this, Tate. Let's highlight that Nolensville-Brentwood girls game. I know you had Coach Ladd on your show this past weekend, one of the best in WCS. Brentwood comes in with a 7-game winning streak. And listen, you got to call it what it is. Leilani Washington, one of the best players in WCS the past few years, not with the program anymore.
Right.
That's a tough player to replace. Brentwood leads 30-28 going to the fourth quarter. Nolensville 16-6 run to win that game 44-36 in the fourth quarter. Now, let's talk about this. Here's what I would say about it. This probably speaks as much to that game as any. Nolensville played Page the previous week, and they were beaten 73-45.
Right.
So what makes you think you're going to go over to Brentwood and win that game? But, man, they pull it off. Impressive win for Coach Ladd in Nolensville.
Yeah, really big win. And I think maybe that's kind of what you talk about all the time is matchups, right? Obviously, it looks like from looking at those two scores, maybe they just had an off night, but it looks to me like Nolensville matches up better with Brentwood High than they do Page. So, but, 44. The other thing is 44-36, right? Which that was one of the things I asked Coach Ladd was, that's not a normal score for Brentwood High. Did you know that keeping it low, the score low, was probably what you all had to do for success? He said he didn't think it'd be that low, but yes, that was, I guess, maybe the game plan. But they played outstanding on defense, and this shows what a compliment. The respect that Ella Ryan has out there. She scores 17 points, and they're proud of the fact that they were able to hold her to 17 points because she's been averaging right at about 30. So to hold her to 17, that the defense played really, really well. Nyla Johnson, shouldered much of that load, but it was a team thing and played really well on team defense. And the thing that stood out to me was there was a lot of steals. They had 5 different players that had steals, a few of them. Ladd, Nyla, all had multiple steals, so played really well on defense.
Sarah Brakefield led the way with 15 points.
12 boards to go with those 15 points.
Nice double-double for Sarah.
A little dub.
Great win there for Coach Ladd. He just does, I know we say it over and over, we get so many coaches that do a good job. really does a nice job there at Nolensville.
And then, did you mention that it was 30-28 at the end of the
30
third?
to 28 at the end of Ryan hits a big bucket to put them up 2 going to the fourth quarter. And if you're kind of watching that game, you're thinking, okay, Nolensville's hung around for 3 quarters. This is going to be a double-digit Brentwood win.
Yeah.
Man, it wasn't.
I mean, think about that. They held Brentwood to 6 points in a quarter. Nobody would have taken that bet. Buying or selling, everybody's selling on that.
Everybody's selling.
Everybody.
Tate, we got to mention this. Again, you were on it early. They're 5-3 now. Brentwood, Nolensville, Page on the girls' side, all 7-1. They've all beaten each other, so who knows how that's going to finish up.
Yes.
We know they're top 3.
Correct.
Franklin 5-3. Indy 3-5, maybe a chance to get in there. In the top 4, Summit 2-6, Ravenwood 1-7, Centennial 0-8. I had to mention this though, because you were on it early. Franklin, couple of big wins. They beat Summit, they beat Ravenwood, they've got 3 straight district wins. And we've been talking about this. We know Cecily Brandamore is going to show up and play great and score points. They're getting other people to step up and score.
And she's a big part of that as well. But you're right. I mean, we get a couple more, and it's happened before. But Molly Forrest had double figures in both games. Ella DeYoung, double figures in one of the 2 games. Part of that is because they're having to focus so much on Brandamore, but they're getting their opportunities and they're making the most of them. And I think they're the scary, obviously the big 3, right? But kind of like what you were talking about on that boys' side. I don't want to see Franklin in the district tournament.
Brandamore, let's talk about how much they focused on her. She had 27 points and 13 rebounds in one game, 23 and 16 in the other.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say this. I know we've mentioned it a little bit. If you vote today for district MVP, who is it? You got Mary Elizabeth Fox Page. Right. She's in there with a chance. Maybe Nyla Johnson from Nolensville. But
Ella
Ryan, obviously, Wilco winner last year. I'm not so sure Brandamore's not up there either. I mean, she's up there, but maybe does she win it?
I would not argue it. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't raise an eyebrow at that at all. Well, and so then let's go back to what is the MVP? You know, they always argue that in the NBA. Well, what if, okay, yeah, but who was the most valuable player? I will say this, I think if you take anybody off of their team, I think it affects Franklin more than it does anybody else. That team changes. And Coach Ladd talked about her. I mean, we were talking about Nolensville on the radio on Saturday, and he talked about her and said he called her the biggest mismatch in the district.
Well, let's go down the list. Brentwood, you take off Ella, I think they're still top 4.
I do too.
Nolensville, Washington, who's their best player going in, they're still going to be top 4.
Agreed.
Page, take off Fox, which happened at the end of last year. They still make the district final.
Agreed.
Franklin, I think they're 7th.
Could be.
I think they're only ahead of Centennial. I don't think they'd beat Ravenwood without her. Right. Even though they beat them 40, I'm just telling you, she's that much. Listen, don't at me. I'm not saying she should be MVP. I'm just saying
it has to be talked about.
Consideration.
Yeah. It's a discussion that needs to be had.
It's a discussion.
And don't forget, they're in the Brentwood game late. They got away from them towards the end, but they're in that game. That's a game.
Tie game, 59-all, and Brentwood ends up winning by double digits. They go on a little run there to end the game, but you're right. And they get that rematch this week, so I'll be interested to see what happens with that. All right, let's talk a little boys. Now, again, like you said, clear as mud. Tuesday night, Brentwood takes care of Centennial, Franklin over Summit, Indy over Nolensville, Ravenwood, 18-point win over Page. Page, playing great. Nolensville gets them. Ravenwood, they went to Battle of the Woods.
That's what they do, man.
50-46, they turn around, and then they beat Page. So now fast forward to Friday. Brentwood takes care of Nolensville. Centennial left for dead. Last place with 1 win. They beat Summit, who'd been playing well. Franklin gets Ravenwood. That score surprised me. It was 19 points. I thought Franklin would win. I thought it'd be a little closer.
Yep.
Independence takes care of Page. Now, let's start with this. Brentwood, I thought, with a couple of great bounce-back wins. They lose that Battle of the Woods. They lose 50-46. They get a win over Centennial, 57-41, and then Nolensville, 46-34. Here's what stood out to me on that Nolensville game. Brentwood's been proving that they can still win in a low-scoring game.
I agree. I would echo that.
So Coach Crane's squad,
especially a 46-34 game,
they're not scoring 92 like they did against Summit earlier in the year.
They're not making 21 threes.
They're not, but they're still winning. They're 6-2.
Which, remember, when that was going on, that was what a lot of people were saying was, yeah, it's a good story, nice story, but they can't continue to make 23s in a game. Let's see what happens when they go cold from 3-point range. Well, there's two wins and there's 2 checks in the win column that were not high scoring affairs with a lot of threes. So yeah, I agree, and especially you've done it, so I think you would agree with it. But a relatively young team.
Oh,
that's pretty cool to see that they can win several different ways with that young team.
Hey,
well, like you were talking about the MVP. Okay, this is going to be tough. This one's going to Coach of the Year on the boys' side. It's going to be tough.
Very tough.
Crane's got to be in the conversation.
He has to be. And here's the scary thing about Brentwood: if you're going to get them this year. They're 6-2, tied for first. So
pretty strong.
They'll be better next year. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just, and then Independence turns around. Page has had some huge wins. Now, I do believe Page was, I'm not saying this is why they won, but against Independence. I believe in that Page score kind of jumps out. Not so surprising that Ravenwood beat Page on Tuesday night, 63-45, but the spread, I do think Page has been battling a little bit of the flu bug.
They've had some tough breaks in terms of folks being out of the lineup. You mentioned Nolensville earlier, or one of us did. They get a big win over Page. So you're like, okay, Nolensville lost to Ravenwood. Right. They got over that, got a great win over Page at home. And then last week they lose to Independence and Brentwood. So you can't really predict what's going on. Independence and Franklin, the two that we said would be at the top, they're sort of surging. Independence, just like last year, they had that sort of slow start, 2-3 or whatever they were. Well, same thing this year. Now they're 5-3.
If you ever, and there's a good chance they're going to win this thing. Probably even good chance they can go back to Murfreesboro again. But if you wonder what kind of a presence Jet Montgomery was on the offensive side, just look at those scores. They're winning. They're getting back to their winning ways. Tough wins, but it is a different look.
Let's look at the boys. Well, let's talk about that just a second. You know, it's interesting. When I came over to the league to coach 9 years ago, this was kind of the offensive league. You know, the knock was maybe defense was like a second thought.
This is what was talked about up in 7 AAA?
9 AAA.
9 AAA.
The talk was, and even, I talked to Dennis King.
Were the words soft used?
Maybe. But it was like, okay, defense optional was the thought. Really, just teams are good offensively here. But the boys' scores, the last couple of years keep going down.
Yeah.
And this year in particular, they're really low. So I think it's interesting that the league has kind of changed in terms of what everybody's hanging their hat on. It seems to be the defensive end. Let's talk about the standings. Centennial, 2-6, they're in 8th. Then you've got 3 teams tied at 3-5. Page, Summit, Ravenwood. Nolensville in 4th at 4-4. Indy, 5-3. Brentwood, Franklin, 6-2, sitting atop the standings. Man, what a who knows on the boys' side? Who knows?
It's tough, man. Well, you just mentioned Ravenwood's knocked off 2 of the top teams. They knocked off Brentwood, and then Page was in there in that top 4. So, and they're 3-5, man. Centennial, that is tough. I think top to bottom, this is the toughest it's ever been.
I think
there is not an easy win in that group.
I think it is too. I don't think, again, no one take this the wrong way. I don't think it's the strongest I've seen it at the top.
Correct.
But in terms of how even it is, and they're quality teams, for sure.
Well, I think Franklin can be, but there's no one like the Independence team last year. There's just not.
No.
So there are a lot of really good teams, but yeah. Top to bottom, that's tough, man. And some will tell you, I mean, I can remember right before Christmas talking about, is Nolensville the top team? And now here they are, they're sitting there with 4 losses. You talk to the coaches and they'll tell you almost to a man, Page might have the deepest team, you know? So, I don't know. And then you got Summit, they keep, Coach Burgess has done a great job there. I mean, and even when they are losing, you look at the loss to Centennial, it's a 3-point loss. They very easily could have won that one. I don't know. It's tough.
Well, and let's don't forget this one. Page goes to Franklin and wins. I had to do a double take on the score. It was like a total beatdown.
Yes.
If we
believed in, do you want me to get out? 2025, just in case there's any, there's a set of rules, Boat Race City. Number 1, just always refer, if you can't remember any of them but one, just remember number 1. There's no Wilco on Wilco crime. There's just not.
But
there's no reason to add. There's no reason to have a discussion about it. We just don't do it. But that doesn't mean
that was at Franklin.
The score didn't. Yeah, that was an eye opener. And then we talk about Centennial a lot. They got Patton and McKelvey that could be all district very easily. I mean, you know, yeah.
I'd be totally nervous about Centennial.
I would too.
And
I'd be nervous about Ravenwood.
And Summit. Well, I'd be nervous about all of them. But if you're quote unquote one of the top teams, you're going to be really nervous about those other teams.
I think it is almost 100%. How many weeks? We got 2 more weeks? 1 more week.
Couple.
Yeah, we got 2 more weeks. 100% chance that doesn't look. In 2 weeks, that doesn't look anything like what it looks like right now.
Well, here's the thing. But let me tell you.
That order is getting changed.
Let me tell you what's going to happen. Just remember I said this. This is one of those where like, oh, it's so even. This means that the top 4 seeds will win the first round games.
That's what happens?
Yeah. Although in volleyball a couple years ago, remember that?
Yeah.
It was the total opposite, or close to the total opposite. So we'll see, but a lot of times when you think it's wide open, it ends up not being wide open when it comes to seeding. All about matchups. All right, let's talk about this. Before we move on, we got to talk about the WCTV game of the week. That was Centennial Summit. Summit gets the win on the girls' side. Centennial gets the win on the boys' side. But let's take a look, Tate Mathews, at the plays of the week.
Once again, just not having a lot of good rim luck. Ali at the buzzer. Bridget Ali with the majority of those points, if not all the points, for the Lady Spartans there in the first period. And Patton finds McKelvey with the backdoor alley-oop. And that's quite the statement to close out the third quarter. The Cougars lead 47-42.
Ali from downtown, they're at Summit. That kind of looked like one of those Reese Glover buzzer beaters from about 5 years ago there. But nice shot by her and knocking that down. Obviously, that game was in control, but that was a big-time shot by her. And then we just talked about him on the boys' side, Patton to McKelvey. I'd like to know what Mr. McKelvey's vertical leap is because he caught that ball and got up. That was impressive. Nice pass by Patton as well.
And Coach Jeremy Moore, he doesn't get overly.
That's right. I'm sure he's going to take credit for that was designed. That was a called play.
Well, I'm just saying he wouldn't get too emotional, outwardly emotional, just all business.
Yeah, he inwardly is, but outwardly, no way. No way he's going to show it. But that was he was still going up when that was impressive.
It was impressive.
Impressive leap.
Pass and finish.
By the way, what do you think of the throwback baby blues with just white lettering unis for the Cougars?
One of my top unis in the district.
That's strong.
It really is. They look great.
Yeah.
They look great. Hey, let's mention this week's games. Tuesday and Friday night. Friday, Summit Page is going to be the WCTV game of the week. I think that's interesting. What stands out to you there, Tate, some of those matchups? Obviously, boys and girls on Friday night at Brentwood Franklin. But what are some other games there?
Yeah, those two stand out because we're really going to know a lot of both boys and girls of those two. Man, I think probably Nolensville Ravenwood on the boys' side. I think is Ravenwood really going to make a move here towards the end? They got to get a win in that one. I think Nolensville is what are they? They've never beaten Ravenwood, right?
Ever
in boys basketball.
11-0.
Right, 11, and I was going to say 12. It's 11. So I don't know. I feel pretty nervous about that if I'm the Raptors. I mean, I know that's, I love what you say. You can't beat a team 3 times. Well, if you beat them 2 times before, what makes them think they're going to win the third? I get it. I'm just saying that one's tough, and they're both not scoring a whole lot of points, right? So I think that one's tricky. I think that one's tricky for the Raptors.
Franklin at Nolensville girls. That's one that interests me.
Yeah. Because you think that's a matchup problem, maybe?
Well, I just think, Franklin's been playing well. Nolensville gets that big win over Brentwood, but can they keep it going? I'm interested in that one.
That would
Franklin
put Nolo.
wins it.
Oh, if Franklin wins it. Then
They're starting to talk about being third.
Yeah. Yes.
So we'll see. We'll see. They still got to knock somebody else off, though.
And by the way, Friday, what do we call that? What is that named? Rivalry Friday. Isn't that Rivalry Friday? Yeah. No, it's not. No.
Sort of.
We already had, yeah.
It's sort of.
We got some old school rivalries.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
Old school rivalry night.
Yes.
Brentwood Franklin being, to me, that's the one I kind of think of.
That is.
But
Nolensville Raven, I mean, there's some, new Rivalry Friday, old Rivalry Friday.
we got to talk about this too. Fairview. They host Montgomery Central and Sycamore. Their boys and girls teams are both 1-1 in district play. I know you've got some thoughts about this, Tate. They're in a 4-team district. This is not their fault.
They're one of 4.
They're 1 of 4. That means they play 6 district games. Which they played their first district game on January 17th. They play their last one on February 4th.
That's a grueling district schedule.
I mean, trust me, I'm not blaming Fairview, but I know you've got some thoughts about this.
Well, no, we're not blaming Fairview at all. You play where you get sent. Not blaming Montgomery Central or Sycamore. Who's the other one, by the way? Greenbrier? Cheatham County. Man, Cheatham County, the Cubs. That's one of the greatest stories of all time for another show. But a coach got tossed. This is a true story. A coach got tossed. He went down and had the Cub come down and was putting the Cub suit on and was going to go back up to watch the game. Athletic principal found him as he's putting the Cub head on. Coach, we can't do this. Anyways, don't blame any of them. What I do want to know is, who do we blame on this? So, because I'm not quite sure, my initial, and love the TWSAA, love them, think they do great work, but my initial thought is we blame them. But maybe we need to do a little research. But let me tell you how bad this is. Out of respect for the TWSAA, I'm not going to go full clown outfit. I'm just going to put on the tie.
Which by the way, looks great with
because
your
I'm not 100% sure, but this is very clown show worthy, okay? A 4-team district. We don't think about how many district games were played before January the 17th, and then it ends on. Talk about anticlimactic. Talk about there's nothing good about it. Okay, so let me tell you this: if they did do, come in here right here, the 4-team district, get in close. This stinks. Okay, 4-team district stinks.
It does.
It stinks. So
it does.
I don't know what we got now. I do think there's some other people that are to blame on this. The people that wanted four divisions now, they kind of helped create this model, did they not?
So I'm going to give some blame to the basketball coaches. And I feel like I can because I was one of them.
You are one of them.
But
you're just not active right now.
Trust me, I didn't suggest this. Everybody thought we need to have 4 classes. It needs to be closer to what football is. It's a totally different sport. So you're going to play 6 district games. You can play like 25 games or 26, and 6 of them are league games?
That's a cool district championship T-shirt.
Well, maybe a 4-way tie.
I bet Yeah, I bet they don't list the teams that they beat on that one.
They're in the region tournament right now, all of them.
I'm getting warmed up, man. I'm starting to add layer and layer. I think this deserves a nose. We're getting pretty close to the hat.
Well, here's the thing, too, about
The
it.
voice is not far behind.
So,
By the way, what happened over the break? Like the nose is sticking on. Did
the nose got corrected or yours got
did intern Will get some repair work done on the nose?
Well, here's the thing about it. I think you're going to see a day and time. And here's what I think is going to happen. No more districts. If you're going to have 4 classes, let's just have region tournaments.
I'm good with it.
Because if you got an 8-team district like we have, very legit. But next year, we've got a 4 and a 5-team one, which is totally terrible. Think about all these games that we're talking, and then now it's 4
teams.
Anyway, we could talk about it forever.
It's not good.
I don't like it. Let's talk about something positive. Let's be positive.
Oh, we're positive. We're always positive.
I'm positive.
That just stinks.
I'm positive that's there.
I'm positive that stinks.
It's pretty bad. Let's talk a little wrestling.
Yeah.
Ravenwood and Summit advanced to the state duels with sectional wins over Cookeville in Summit's case, 52-30. Green Hill, that's a good program.
Good program.
Ravenwood beats them 33-26. I want to give you this gem right now. This is a good one, Tate. Summit advances to the state duels for the 5th consecutive year. That's not the good stuff. That's good for them.
That's real good.
Ravenwood for the first time since 2014. Who was the head coach at the time?
That would be Josh Peck.
Who is the current coach right now. And people forget this. You remember it. When
Josh
he was
Peck.
at Ravenwood, they were the power.
They were.
Won 5 region titles, I think it was. Maybe 5 in a row, ending with that 2014. But since then, they haven't been quite the same. And you said it in the beginning. I'm going to agree with you. It was an upset when they beat Owensville in the regional tournament.
It was an upset. And you know what, though? But I'll tell you how big of an upset it was. One, they've kind of been trying to let you know this is what they were going to do. They were going to pick somebody off with what they've been doing during the season. But when I saw that, I knew then Ravenwood just punched their ticket to the state duels. I didn't know who it was going to be yet, but it didn't matter. They beat Owensville. They're beating whoever's next, which ended up being Green Hill. And that's big, man, because that Owensville team is that's a tough pill to swallow, right?
It is.
We talk about how tough our boys and then the top of the girls' side, but also the boys. But man, Owensville is one of the best teams in the state. They don't even make it to the state duels because of somebody in county. So that was huge. And you're right, Coach Peck, and we talk about this all the time in wrestling. When Coach Peck was at Ravenwood, they had numbers. I mean, he's got a gift for. I don't know if attracts is the right word, but I think that's part of it. He has a gift identifying. They've always got their multi-sport wrestling guys that are good. The Rolands, pretty good, right? With the football teams, but he's just got a talent for identifying and attracting those kind of kids. That's all they do, man. But but the number one thing is when he left, numbers dipped. Since he's been back, the numbers are back up, and this isn't a one-year thing.
No, it's not. It's not. Hey, let's go back to Summit. They started their match with Cookeville, 3 straight pins, and it's over after that.
Since you've been in this role, I don't think you went to not to cut you off, but I think you'll 100% agree with this. Because before that, you were always in a gym. You didn't go to many wrestling matches.
No, not many. I went to some, but not many.
Right, but to support wherever you were. But, since you've been in this role, you've been, and so one, that's exciting anyways. But in a district tournament, region tournament atmosphere, when the first 3 matches are pins, you want to talk about an electric feeling in a gym. That's awesome.
It's juice.
And talk about momentum. That's momentum in wrestling.
Mark Taddeo, one of the all-time great names.
Big time.
At 120. Joaquin Apple, 126. Michael Posey, 132. It's 18-0. It's over. Hey, I did want to mention this too. Fairview won the region tournament. The more things change, the more they stay the same. They did lose in the sectionals for the second consecutive year to Mumford, 42-39. Great run by Coach Biff Curtis in his first year as another great name.
It's unbelievable.
As head coach. Following Coach Derrick, I mean, what he did is he is Fairview Wrestling.
He is. Those are huge shoes to follow. Man, what a.
You like that name, don't you?
Especially for a wrestling coach. How you doing, Coach? Biff.
Let's see.
And we're getting ready to mop the mat with you.
Yes, we are. So, anyway, great run by them. I wanted to mention them as well.
Hey, not in the excuse-making business. Mumford, on that division, Mumford's a really good wrestling program.
They're good. Hey, let's look at the bracket for the state duels, Tate. Ravenwood draws Cleveland in the first round. They're on the same side as Collierville, Dobbins, Bennett. Summit gets Houston. And then after that, winner of Bradley Central, Knox Halls. Now, here's my prediction. Summit, Cleveland in the final. And I think you're going to see Ravenwood in that third, fourth place match. I think they're going to fight all the way back in that consolation bracket and be wrestling for third place. What are your thoughts about the bracket?
I think it's father versus son in the championship match. And as much as it's going to happen. But I still don't think it happens this year. I hope it does, but.
You know what would be kind of great, and they could talk some trash to me? Remember I told you, I said the next state championship.
Nolensville wrestling.
Nolensville. Oops.
I was going to let that slide.
Although the individual tournament.
It could be. That's
the
right.
Traditional.
That's right.
They're resting up.
I think you're right. I think it's Cleveland, Summit, unfortunately. Barring a flu outbreak in Cleveland or something, I think they end up getting the state championship again. We need to check that out and see how many that will make if they do. What a program. Again.
No offense to your dad, Coach Miller, but
right.
I'm sick of it.
I'm
sick of that.
That's right. I think he is too. if you don't know Pete Miller, Summit's coach, his father Al is the head coach of Cleveland.
The Al Miller Duels.
The Al Miller Duels. I'm with you. I think Ravenwood makes it. But you're probably thinking it's Ravenwood, Bradley, aren't you?
Yes.
I think it's Ravenwood, Houston.
Oh. Houston Athletics, got to give them credit.
Well,
they got a little different set of rules.
If we allowed people to come to our schools like that, I mean, my gosh. I'm not saying I blame them, but different set of rules.
Different set of rules. All right, let's finish with this. This is exciting too. Bowling. Congratulations to Coach Jay McCulley. The boys bowling team at Nolensville, they're a state semifinalist. They start off with the win over Upperman, 14-13 in the first round. Then they just run into the buzzsaw that is Hardin County. They lose 24-3 in the semis, and then Creekwood ends up beating Hardin County. Creekwood, Dixon, Hardin County, those have been the teams, really Hardin and Creekwood more than, really Hardin, but Hardin and Creekwood. And now Creekwood's in our league, so a little bit tougher. But congratulations to Coach McCulley. Great job there at Nolensville making the semis.
Yeah, big time. Does that mean we have a passing of the torch of Wilco bowling supremacy?
Now
Nolensville
Page not in the district with the other
correct
WC.
But they're there.
They made the semis.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'll say this, Nolensville's on the rise. They're definitely on the rise. Coach Logan, now I would say on the individual side, we had 3 compete. John Coyle, the sophomore out of Franklin, he finished 16th. He was our lone individual in that tournament. On the girls' side, a couple from Independence, Elena Stanley, Isabella Warner, Elena 14th, Isabella 23rd. And then unified bowling, I like that too. Again, another area where Franklin has dominated. Nolensville defeats Franklin for third place in the unified.
They're on the rise, man. That's strong.
They're on the rise.
And then on the girls' side, Hardin County, I think I saw where they won their 12th straight.
I'm tired of them too.
Oh, big time.
Listen,
I want to know what's in the. There's something, man. You know what I'm saying? That's.
Well, I did a little research. What happens is at the elementary level, even they take like field trips and that kind of stuff, and it's bowling.
It's awesome.
I think it is too. I will say
Why
this.
can't
though.
we do that?
Well, but since we've added it in middle school, you're going to see us make that jump. This is year, I think, 3, middle school bowling.
It's awesome.
So, listen, if I'm the bowling coach, I'm not, so I'm not trying to be critical, but I know Coach Logan's done this. I'm going to the baseball coach and the baseball players. I'm going to the softball coach and the softball. If they're traditional, that's all they've done. Like, look, just come with me. You can still do your thing in baseball and softball, off-season training, whatever you're doing. Just give me some in-season time. And Coach Logan definitely done that to Franklin.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I love that.
Didn't we have a couple years ago? We had a Wilco finalist.
In both.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I love it.
Tate, glad to be back.
Yeah, man.
Looking forward to the duels. That's out at the Ag Center
All day Saturday.
all day Saturday.
It's fun. It's hey, if you ever been to the Ag Center, parking is not an issue. Plenty of parking.
Walking to the building's an issue, though.
Yes.
You may have
Get
a
your
little
steps
bit,
in.
You may have a little bit of a walk to get there. And I know the traditional tournament where it's the individuals and you get team points and crown a winner. To me, there's nothing like it's my school versus your school. I love it.
I agree.
And Coach Miller really likes it too.
Yeah.
Even
I
though
agree.
he's a purist, so to speak, he loves and has embraced the duels, which a lot of our coaches have.
Correct.
I think it's fun.
I think they do. As a team, they do take more pride in that.
I love
I
it.
think if you polled them and said you can have one or the other, which one would you rather win? I think they'd say they'd rather win the duel.
I think they would too. Tate, looking forward to seeing you again next week. Maybe basketball will become a little clearer. Girl side probably will. Boys side probably get worse.
I can hear the cracking of the bats right now.
That's right.
They're getting close.
They're getting close.
It's going to be fun.
Thank you for joining us for Sports Connection. We'll see you next time.